Alright guys, this is the cat coloring line art file that you should be able to find in the shared folder. It is a TIFF format, and so we are going to change that to a PSD. So let's go ahead and do that. So File, Save As, and so you want to change the format to a PSD. That's really important to do. And then you'll put it in your documents, wherever it is that you keep your things. Hopefully you have a graphic design or intro to computer graphics folder that you can put that in. I'm just going to put mine on the desktop. And actually I've already got one in there, so I'm going to cancel. So make sure you go File, Save As, change the format. Okay, first thing we're going to do is unlock the background layer. It's locked. You see the padlock. To unlock it, double click it. And we're just going to hit OK, and now it's called Layer 0 and it's unlocked. We're going to create a new layer, but I want to drag the new layer underneath the cat layer. Make sure that you do not change the cat layer. We don't want to go and lock it, but you just want to make sure that you don't do anything to it. So actually, on that layer 0, we need to change the mode to multiply, and I'll show you why we do that here in a second. So you've got layer 1, it's got that checkerboard, so we know there's nothing on it. That means it's completely see-through, but it's hard to show that something is see-through, so Photoshop uses that checkerboard. So on layer 0, we are going to use the selection tool, and the first one I usually start with is the quick selection tool, because it's quick and easy. So we're going to use that quick selection tool. And we have to be on layer 0 to do this. But you're going to click and drag the mouse around, making sure that you don't go inside that moon or whatever, sun, whatever you think it might be. And so we've got the marching ants going around the edge of our frame, and it's going right up to the cat and around the moon, but not inside of it. So if you screw that up, just let me know and I will try and help you figure that out. Because we're going to start with our background. So now that we have that selected, we need to switch back over to layer 1. So remember, Photoshop is all about being on the right layer. It's really confusing in the beginning. So now we're going to put our color on layer 1. And even though we did our selection on layer 0, we can move around. So on layer 1, we're actually going to add a gradient to the background. And so you want to click your gradient tool over here, and then you can pull down the drop down up near the top, and you can select one of the presets. I really don't care. If you go to your gear, you can, this is like your gradient library basically, and then instead of hitting OK, you want to hit append, so it adds to it. So you could make a little pastel little cat here, or you could just use you could come in here and do a manual something by double clicking the stop, changing the color, get rid of stops, you know, however you want to do that. Sure, I don't really care. And I want you to leave it on the linear one, which is the first, so don't change it to any of the other ones. Alright, so then you're just going to click and drag, and it's only going to put the gradient in the area that's been selected. So that's why we made that selection. Okay, so now we need to deselect, which is Control D in Photoshop. It's much easier to deselect in Photoshop. So we have that, and then we are going to do another new layer, and just little something to point out here. If we didn't have that on multiply, if you forgot to do that, if it was on normal, you wouldn't see any color, but you would know there's color there, you just couldn't see it. So multiply allows the different layers to show through. Multiply. There's other layers, or these are called layer properties. There's other layer properties that would allow color to show through, but not quite in the same way as this multiply. So we are going to switch to layer 2. Actually, just to be less confusing, I'm going to change my name of layer 1 to gradient, layer 0 to cat, and then layer 2 is going to be moon. If you want to think of that as a sun, I'm okay with that. It doesn't really matter. Alright, and we're going to use the brush tool for this one. As far as modes, size, maybe around 30. That's totally up to you though. And the hardness of the brush, somewhere around the middle. You don't want it to be too much of a hard edge. You don't want it to be too soft, too diffused. So maybe somewhere between 40 and 50. It's personal preference though. And then to choose a color, you're going to select your foreground color and choose something that looks like a moon. And again, you could make this purple. It doesn't really matter. What I'm looking for is that you're doing the layers correctly and you're taking care when you're making your selection and doing your painting. It shouldn't be messy. I'm going to back up a little bit. Okay. So for the moon, you're just going to paint it in. You want it to be at 100% opacity. This color is kind of yucky, but no big deal. You're just going to paint it in. Your flow should be about 100% so that it comes out quickly. You don't really need it to come out really slow. And so you're just going to paint that in. You can overlap a little bit, but you want to get rid of, like, you don't want there to be any gaps or missing areas. Like I wouldn't want to leave that white streak right there. And so I'm mostly doing this in, I guess like 1 or 2, maybe 3 different sections. So I'm clicking and dragging. I'm not like click, 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 click. I'm not doing a bunch of clicks. I'm clicking and dragging. So I'm going to get rid of that. You really need it to be at 100% opacity while you're painting. And then if you feel like it needs to be a little bit lighter, that's fine. We've isolated that color, so you could change the entire layer to something more transparent. It's up to you. So, whoops. So if you wanted to overlap a little bit, like if you wanted it to look kind of messy, I don't want it to be like super messy. I want to make sure that you know what you're doing. So at a lighter transparency, it looks a little bit better when it's a little messy like that. It looks like it's been screen printed. We'll get more into this when we do pop art. Alright, so we've got, we're going to do one more layer. And this is the layer. You want it to keep it above the cat. This is where you'll go in and paint your cat. So maybe you do want to use some of that same yellow in the cat. Maybe his eyes. That's crazy. We need to change this mode to color, and so it doesn't cover up the black. Alright, so there's his eyes, or her, whatever. Maybe you want a blue cat, bluish gray. This is where you can kind of do your own thing. So make it look like a cat. And whatever, do your thing. I'd like it to be more than just one color though. I don't want your whole cat to be one purple or one blue. I want you to kind of use some of these darker areas for shading, like darker, lighter. I want it to look not necessarily realistic, but at least like there's some shading going on and you've used a couple different colors. So change your layer 1 name to cat body, or whatever makes sense to you. And then you're pretty much done. So if some people in the past have finished early and they've experimented with like custom shapes in here. People have added grass in the foreground. That's pretty much it, I think. Maybe some stars or... Yeah, one person did a night scene. It was kind of dark, and then they added some little twinkly stars in the background. So it's up to you. You guys have a little bit of freedom on this one. So.